So I'd like to give you some information, a little bit of an introduction about the ideas behind Project Dragonfly and how to incorporate those ideas of inquiry, community, and voice into your projects within any of the programs within the GFP, the AIP, or Earth Expeditions, and really any of our classes. One of the foundational ideas behind Project Dragonfly is to promote and foster democracy. And we do that when we value individuals' voices. And we give folks the opportunity to ask their own questions. And not only when we give the opportunity to ask others their own questions, but when we give ourselves the opportunity to ask our own questions and when we value our own voices. So this idea is really foundational to Dragonfly and what it is that we're trying to do here with inquiry, community, and voice. So with that said, a few years ago, we, back when we were working with some National Science Foundation grant funding, we worked with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America to come up with an acronym that might help us remember the scientific method and a good way to ask and answer our own questions about our world. Dragonfly magazine placed children's investigations on equal footing with adult researchers' investigations, and but all of whom really followed Quest, sort of the this idea of question and observe, uncover comparative questions, explore predictions, start action plan and gather data, and think hard about findings and share discoveries. So we're going to talk about each of these pieces of the acronym a little bit here. The first being question and observe. So when you're thinking about what you might want to do for an inquiry project or an inquiry action project, or really any project, as I said, that we have at Dragonfly as part of our programs or our graduate courses, we want to promote your passions, and we want you to figure out what it is that you want to discover. So think about what your passions are, what your interests are, and what you might want to investigate in your home, your work, your community, your life. Some of those things might be about rain, it might be about the growing season, it might be about birds, it might be about the people who lived in and around your area. And I have put together a list here, a document called Exploring Your Passions Through Your Culture and Your Sense of Place. And we'll make this document available to you all so you can have it as a resource. So lots of people come into our program with an idea that they are completely ready to explore marine science or a specific aspect of marine science, or the invertebrates outside their front door. They are really interested in insects, and they know what they're going to do. But by the same token, a whole lot of folks come into our programs and our classes not knowing what kinds of questions they are, having an idea, but maybe not knowing the kind of direction that they'd like to take for a particular project. And so if you really dive deep into your own culture and your sense of place about where it is that you live in the world, that'll help you identify what your passions are if you're sort of wondering what you might want to explore. The first list of bullets here, the first bulleted list is about yourself and your own culture. What are your favorite foods? What do you like to do when you get home from work? What was the last movie you made? What you read? Or the movie you watched or book you read? And how did those make you feel? Why is your favorite room in your house your favorite? So this first list, really hopefully helps you at least get in touch with your own culture and what is important to you. The second list I put together with help. The citations are at the bottom of the document from a couple of different locations. But what is outside your front door, and what might you be interested in exploring outside your front door in terms of biotic or abiotic communities, with invertebrates, with birds, with animals, with the people outside your front door. So the second list really is a good way to explore your sense of place and where you are, because that might help you identify passions about which you might not be immediately apparent to you. So hopefully this list of questions will help you identify some of those passions. And then we want you to look more closely at those questions and observations and investigate, the same things you saw or were interested in before, but sort of more deeply. Go observe, draw, measure, use your senses and explore the sights, the colors, the textures, the smells, the sounds, and start looking at patterns and identifying what's the same and what's different. Because a critical step in your careful observations, a critical step in this process of quest is moving from a question to a comparative question. And not all scientific investigations have to be comparative questions. But if you start there and you explore that, the way a question can be worded comparatively, it really gets you to the next step and gives you a kind of a solid foundation upon which to build an investigation. So now we're looking at finding just the right question to investigate by uncovering comparative questions. So you're thinking more deeply about those questions you have and maybe making some decisions about what it is you really do want to investigate, because it sparks your imagination and it sparks your passion. And it sparks interest in solving your own investigation and your own inquiry. And think about what your questions can add to our understanding of the world and your understanding of the world. Who might find this question particularly interesting? And not knowing the answer might be a good indication that you're headed in the right direction. So if we're wondering about spiders in our yard and we wonder how many we can find, we can go outside and count 10 outside the front door. But if we think comparatively and wonder whether certain spiders are in this place in my yard or that place in my yard, it can lead to more questions. Are they near buildings or further away? Are they in trees or grasses more? Is there more protection in a building crevice or the crook of a tree? For spiders or maybe some other invertebrate, could shade be a factor, temperature? And what about spider webs? It sort of gets you thinking about lots of questions and lots of possible investigations. And then we're moving sort of more into possible investigations that you might have. And this list of questions, this next list of questions are actual investigations that dragonfly folks have done. So how does behavior among zoo-reared primates compare to behavior among primates raised in other ways? How about different zoo-reared primates in the zoo? How do those comparisons and behaviors change? Do young gorillas interact with a silverback as much as they interact with a male teacher? Do young gorillas interact with a silverback as much as young children interact with a male teacher? It's a very interesting question. We had one of our dragonfly students explore that very question. Do different trees in my yard make different sounds in the wind? Do plants affect the behavior of my kids when I read to them? Do crickets chirp more in the daytime or at nighttime, during sunrise or sunset? So very, very interesting questions, comparative questions that are going to take us to another place, and we're going to learn something new about the answers, about those questions and the answers to those questions. Before we move on, though, we're going to do observations, and we're going to see what kinds of things we see out there, actually, because that's going to inform a good prediction. A prediction is not just a wild guess. It is based in our observation of the world, and it's based in the existing literature and the existing research that others have done prior to our investigations. So what does the peer-reviewed literature say about your topic? And not just sort of the topic of primates, but the topic of allo or auto grooming in primates, or the topic of zoo-reared primates, or in situ or ex situ primates. Once you start honing down your question, you're going to find a lot of research about not perhaps the direct question that you have where there is a gap in the research, hopefully, but that can help inform your predictions about that gap in the research, about your question. The next step, the S, start action plan and gather data. So now you're going to build a plan and figure out how you're going to answer that question. What are you going to do? How are you going to accomplish this plan? Are you going to engage others? And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But Dragonfly is a whole lot about engaging others in all of the process steps of investigation, because we are inquiry, community, and voice. And we do, promote voice and want to engage others in our questions and in answering those questions about the world. And now we're going to sort of create a data sheet, an instrument, a data collection instrument, an ethogram if we're doing an animal behavior study or a survey, and we're going to go find out. We're going to get the answers to those questions. We're going to get data about our question. After that, we're going to think about it. How is our understanding of our world and our place in it changed because of the data that we've gathered about this question. And we're going to share those discoveries with others. It's a really important and imperative part of the scientific process. So what did we find? What does it all mean? And we are creating a quick way of seeing it so that we can share that information with others. In Dragonfly and in lots of other classes, and with research in general, you'll write about those findings and have sort of all of these process steps, the abstract, intro, methods, results, discussion, and conclusions in your process steps. You'll write each of those sections, and it will become a part of your final research paper. And with Dragonfly, the action step over here can be sort of a part of any and all of these steps. Sort of what action are you going to take because and as a result of your new discoveries about the world. And along that line, I sort of want to tack on an S to the end of Quest because of the importance and the importance of the social component of all of these steps. Within and among any of these process steps, we really encourage you to engage others in the process, engage others in creating your research question, engage others in your observations, engage others in creating a comparative question and coming up with the ultimate research question that you decide on. And together you can explore predictions. Maybe you'll have different predictions about what you think you'll find. And others can help you, and you can engage your community in the actual data collection, in the start action plan and gather data. And they can certainly be involved in the process of discussing and coming up with what you discovered. They can certainly take part in that last T, think hard about findings and share discoveries, and help you decide where to share your discoveries. So the S, as I said, I sort of want to add an S in some ways to Quest. So we have quests. It's an ever constant, ever investigating set of process steps that we're going to with the scientific method and with the integration of the social into this in a way that promotes voice. Always we're coming back to that, our own and our others' voices, and how we can create change as a result of having made those discoveries about our world. I put together a couple of resources. As I said, I'll let you know, give you the link to the questions, the bulleted questions about exploring your passion and culture and sense of place, and then also the further readings on Quest here, and a really great article that we found that a guide to writing, scientific writing for undergraduates, but it's really great for undergraduates and graduates and anybody really who's partaking in the scientific endeavor. So these are some great resources, and I hope you enjoy